There we go. Pace. You with me?
I'm with you.
All right, we're live. There we go. Pace. So this is what I want to do. First, I apologize for mispronouncing your name so that anybody watching this, it's not Pace, it's Reis. In Brazil, the R is pronounced as an H, and so I'm conditioned to say Pace, but I'm guessing you've seen that plenty of times.
Yeah. Many a times.
But you know what? You gotta correct people. It could be worse. It could be worse.
No, I also learned that because I travel a lot, so I learned that the way my name is spelled in Dutch, it means to travel.
Wow.
Right.
Did your parents know that ahead of time?
Oh, absolutely not. Not at all. My mom had me at 14. I doubt she knew that at 14. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my parents gave me a name, especially on my father's side. They do a lot of digging on names, and my name is YusefWateef. What's interesting is I don't know how they could have known it then, but traveling the world, I've lived in over 15 countries. Every city I go to, every country I go to, someone somewhere has an uncle or a cousin named Yusef. So I get doors open for me. Oh, I've got an uncle Yusef. You should come by and have dinner with us. I've got a cousin named Yusef. Your name is Yusef and you're from America?
Yeah.
And they just, I'll be your friend.
I know a black guy named Yusef. He was from LA.
The difference is there's like infinite ways to spell it. I've seen my name spelled with 15 letters, accurately, pronounced the right way. And mine is arguably the simplest, YusefWateef.
Right. That's interesting. 15 letters?
I think it was YOUSSEIFF. So maybe it was 10 letters. Whatever it was extraordinary.
Still,
it was extraordinary.
That's a lot going on. Yeah. That's a lot for one name with 2 syllables.
Yusef, and people ask, well, how do I pronounce it? I said Yusef. And they struggle.
How else would you pronounce it?
Hey, you know what? People try. So when I go to other countries, I try to say their names. It works.
Right.
It works.
But
I wanted to catch up with you. Well, you know what? The reason I caught up with you, let's talk about that second. Tell us your name, who you are, where you're from, what makes you awesome. Because I can go off on a tangent. But tell the people who don't know who you are.
So my name is Reis Armstrong. I am from New Orleans, Louisiana, by way of Illinois. I grew up in about 8 different states. I come from a nomadic family. When I say I'm going home, I'm going to New Orleans. What makes me awesome is what makes everybody awesome. We're all awesome in our own way. So I don't think I'm any more awesome than the next person.
That's a very humble approach. I've got to research humility. I've told it's a good character trait.
Fair enough.
You know, one thing when you popped up, where are you right now?
I'm in Bali right now.
Bali, okay.
Yes.
Wow.
But I live in Australia.
I was living in Sydney, Australia, when the Bali bombing happened.
Wow.
And that really affected us because right now, I don't know if you saw it, and I'll put it in the comment. Yesterday, I had a conversation where for the first part of it, we talked about these global repercussions of the bombings and sectarian warfare and religious warfare. A lot of the conversations I have here on YouTube, we have some very serious conversations, but a lot of them, are more fun. But that one got kind of, that one got kind of difficult.
Ironically, there was a bombing in Sri Lanka yesterday where 290 people were killed, and I was actually supposed to be there in 2 weeks, like 2 weeks from today. That was my next destination. So now I'm just thinking, like, should I go? But again, I'm just like, okay, you know what? Life happens no matter where you at, and it could be a bomb in here tomorrow. So, with that said, I'm still going to go.
Yeah, it could happen anywhere. What I will also tell you, one of the things I like about Brazil is they don't have a whole lot of external problems. Their problems tend to be internal and more manageable. But one of the things that Brazil is kind of like, it's like Jamaica. I have a Jamaican friend. He often says anybody who says they hate Brazil is just a jerk. There's no reason to hate the country,
I mean, but how was it with that president that's in office right now. Because from what I see, of course, you know, you can't believe everything you see on TV with any country. But from what I see from the outside looking in, he seems to be very far right,
He is. He's
political
very
wise.
far right. His name is Bolsonaro. And the political landscape here, I can safely say to you, after 4 years, everything I'm going to say is from the perspective of a foreigner who is black, but not Brazilian black. And my world is different. And even though I'm learning the language, I am not fluent enough in the micro details of the language to have a legitimate conversation about politics. And I want to put that disclaimer out there because I don't want to insult anyone. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. For sure.
What I will tell you is that we are in a country where, unfortunately, you know, this was a country that went through major seismic shifts. I'm going to give you an example. I am older. I think I'm older than their current constitution. They've gone through several constitutions, military dictatorship. So when people talk about the forms that the country is taking, they're not really being fair and giving it. America wasn't just developed less than 40 years into their own constitution. America did not have the rights and privileges. And I mean, granted, everything is on a continuum, but he's Bolsonaro, a far right politician. He's been elected in direct opposition to the last party, which was in power for 16 years. And people said, well, what have they done in 16 years? Well, they're a very liberal party. One thing that they did that upset the social order is they brought millions of poor people out of poverty. And that upset the apple cart. This is a country that is based on, it had the highest number of slaves ever. And culture evolved around permanent underclasses. When that social order got disrupted, it upset a lot of people. A lot of people. Now, I'm not telling you that either political party were angels. Everybody steals. That's my country, you know, our country and their country. All politicians. I don't trust politicians. But one of the things I can say is that I think that the last party went about being a thieving politician the way a lot of the more successful politicians do, meaning they steal and then they sprinkle a little bit, you know, around to the common folk. Everybody happy. The current administration is proposing austerity measures that will unjustly hit the poorest of the poor, the people who have the least amount of education. Education is a big deal here. People don't get caught up.
Like America.
But here's the difference. I would say that the lifestyle of an extraordinarily rich American and the lifestyle of an extraordinarily rich Brazilian aren't that different. The lifestyle of a middle to upper middle class, or even lower class, mid Brazilian and mid American aren't that different. The difference is this: the bottom percentage in America, we have a floor. For example, you've never heard of an American starving to death. You've never heard of an American who didn't have water in their government-funded apartment. Now, we do have places like Flint, Michigan that are underfunded and water is bad, but that's the exception, not the rule. In Brazil, if you are in that bottom class, there's no way out, and there is a chance that you will not have food tomorrow. And that's the difference that most Americans don't see. We have a bottom to our poor. Their bottom doesn't exist. There's always a basement underneath the basement that you can fall to.
Gotcha.
You know, that's heartbreaking.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's very well put. But so as a person of color in Brazil, as a Black American, do you feel safer there than you do in your home country?
And that's where I came in with you. I read an article, and I think it was on Travel Nor?
Travel Nor, yeah.
You were featured in an article, and I'm going to link that article for people who want to read it. It was called The Black Expat I Left America with Nothing But a Backpack and a Fearless State of Mind. That got me, because one of the things that a lot of us deal with, what you said about feeling safer, is that, and this is terrible to say about your own country, every single country I've ever lived in was a country where Black people are safer than the one we were born in.
Right. Very true.
And that's a terrible thing to say about the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Is still a country where, and don't get me wrong,
built it.
Yeah, as Black Americans, we have done enormous strides, but
Right.
it's terrifying to know that that feeling is still there. I remember
Mm-hmm.
reading Baldwin, and I remember watching, what was it? I remember watching I Am Not Your Negro,
Mm-hmm.
and he talked about struggling to come back to the United States after living abroad. I think he was in Paris.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about was going back to a country, no, leaving a country where he had to leave. I apologize, there's an airplane overhead. Hold on.
No worries.
When he talked about coming back to the United States, having left just to be a human, just to be treated as a man.
Right.
And one of the things that we often talk about, we talked about this yesterday as well, when you are a Black American traveling, interestingly enough, there is a level of love that you get that you can't really understand because no one is going to tell you that in the United States.
Yeah. Very true. From my experience, I lived in Lithuania for about 5 months last year. My job had me living in Lithuania, and I probably saw maybe 3 Black people the entire time. But during that time, I never felt like I was a second class citizen. I never felt as if I was being watched or I had like 3 strikes on my back. I just never felt that way. I never felt um, unsafe. And I can't say the same thing for my own country, which is crazy. And even here in Bali, I've never feel like I'm in any harm or danger just by being a person of color.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Australia. Now, granted, Australia does have their issues with the Aboriginals, who are just as Black as us, sometimes blacker. But for some reason, when it comes to Black Americans, we don't get that same mistreatment as the natives do in Australia, the
right.
Black natives in Australia. Yeah.
One of my clients in Australia is a politician, and we sat down one day at a dinner, and everybody's being fancy, and I heard the person right next to me saying something about Black folks and Black people and Black fellas.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned to my friend and I said, well, I don't know if I should commend him or think he's an idiot. Why is he talking about me and my people while I'm sitting here? And he looked at me and he went, so we walk outside. He says, listen, I'm only going to tell you this once. If you ever quote me, I'll deny it. He says, here's what the history of Australia is. We came here, we murdered as many of them as we could, stole as many of their children as we could, raped as many of them as we could, and now we're angry at them for not being as enlightened or developed as we are. We can never give it back. He actually looked me in the eye. He said, there's no way to give back any of the things that we took. And so now you have a lot of people that just pretend like they're somehow less civilized.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
that's the same story with any country that was colonized. We share the exact same history. Whether it's Brazil or the US or Australia, anywhere that was colonized by a European, we shared that same atrocity of natives being killed, women being raped, and land being stolen. And now we are the permanent underclass.
right. And that's a terrible
It's a cycle.
to understand.
And it's when you think about it, it's just it can be very upsetting, very heartbreaking, because you see, like, when you travel and you visit these countries that were once colonized, you see the same thing over and over and over again, with the people of color being at the bottom. And it baffles me how the world this is a Black planet. Let's be clear. This is a planet full of color, but somehow we are still here and they're still here, right? It just baffles me that that's still the case 200, 300, 400 years later. Yeah.
Speaking of culture and things of that nature, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, right now you're wearing, in Brazil, they call it a turbanche, your head wrap. And it's interesting because they just had a big issue about it, and it actually made international news about head wraps having been culturally something that, at least in Brazil, I know globally it has different implications, Black women wore.
Yeah.
Part of it was being, in a lot of countries.
Had to wear.
I didn't know this, that it happened in more than the United States.
It happened in New Orleans a
Hair
lot.
had to be covered because other women were envious of their hair.
Yeah. That's a deep history in New Orleans too, with Creole and Black women having to cover their hair because the white French women felt a way towards their hair because it was so big and bold, and you know how Black women hair get when it's in its Afro state, and they felt intimidated by that because of course their hair falls and ours it expands. So yeah, that definitely was a thing in New Orleans for sure. But globally, not just, again, in any colonized nation where you have people of color, especially people from the African diaspora, they experience those same injustices and prejudices.
But here in Brazil, men wear them too, And you also learn that different colors
I love a good hair wrap.
Different things. But many men from different cultures would wear them as well. And it's it became an article, and I'll have to link to that article, where they had an issue where it became trendy, as things do. And you had lots of women who had no connection to Turbanchi wearing it. And I got into a very difficult conversation with a lot of my friends, and I'd love your opinion on this. I didn't care. I didn't care at all that white people were wearing headbands.
Me neither.
There are so many other things. Also,
I mean,
it's like there are other things to be worried about. And also, I've been a Black American in Japan learning Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Like, at what point? At what point do we admit that the world is this interconnected place?
Right. And but you know what I realized when I was living in Lithuania, I would see white women with, and even in Australia too, I would see white women with multicolored braids, like weave braids. What do you call them back home? I can't think of the name, but like just like the braids that Black girls wear back in the hood, like just like box braids. Thank you. I would see box braids and micro braids. I would see on multiple occasions white women in Lithuania and in Australia and Poland and Russia. They would have these micro braids, these box braids, and different and multicolored braids. And it's just like you would never see that back home in America because it's considered cultural appropriation. But around the world, no one blinks an eye, no one bats an eye.
Right.
Yeah. But back home, if a white woman was to do that, you would be called Rachel Dolezal, But overseas is just I think it's just really just a cultural thing more than anything, and what we deem to be acceptable and unacceptable, because it's acceptable everywhere else but America. And people ask me all the time, like, how do I feel about white people wearing dreads or locks? I don't care. Like, who cares?
There are bigger things to worry.
It doesn't bother me. I don't feel threatened by that.
And where are you right now again? You're in Bali, right?
I'm in Bali.
What took you to Bali? Are you on holiday? Are you in some private secret mission?
Well, I came for my 30th birthday. I turned 30 last month in March. Thank you, brother. And so I came here for that, and I ended up staying. For me, it's just what I need at the moment. Like it's a mixture of spirituality, nature, ocean, water, and partying. So I have everything that I need right here, and I can also sit down every day and I can write. I write from 9 to 5, and it's the perfect balance for all that I need at this moment in my life.
Excellent. A lot of people ask me about, how do I start writing? I have a website where 95% of it is writing, and the rest of it I'll do a conversation with someone like this. And I tell them it's just like anything else. If you say, I want to be a writer, I want to write. Now, to me, writing, to you and I, writing is part of what we do professionally as well. I tell people all the time, as a copy editor, I do editing, copywriting, proofreading. That's my career.
Right.
So many of my clients don't care what I have on LinkedIn. They look at my website and they go, oh, he has a talent for writing. He has a flair for this or that. Or he's not the right for me, and they'll hire me. I do a lot of ghostwriting.
Okay.
People in different places. That's
awesome.
That's almost like free money because everybody wants something written about Brazil. Although,
exactly,
if you can tell me if this has ever happened to you. Do people hire you as a ghostwriter?
No, not yet.
That's a lucrative business if you ever try to get into it.
Okay.
I had a situation where one of the groups. You hear something?
He's making coffee. I'm in the hostel, so it's a lot going on.
All right.
If I need to move around, just let me know, because I can move around.
That's cool. That's cool. There was a group that contacted me to write about Brazil and life here, and I said, "Great, no problem."
I'm gonna move.
Hold on, wait. No. Stay there. What I'm going to do is I can mute you until it's time for you to talk again. You can mute yourself. I just did it because it's faster. Well, they contacted me and said, "We want you to write about Brazil and women and things like that." And I said, "Well, that's fine." But then we got into an argument because they were one of those groups of people that convinced men that somehow if you come to Brazil with an American passport, you'll have all these beautiful bodied women just falling all over you. When in fact, and this is for anybody listening, when they sell you that package, what they don't tell you is that they've already prepaid a bunch of prostitutes to pretend that way so that they can get your money and convince you to come on these date plans. Now, my whole thing is I have been loved by, in, on, and around women from all over the world. And I can tell you, if you're not having any real fortune with women in your country, don't think you're going to come to Brazil and you're just going to, like magically you're going to be different. If you're a loser in America, if you're a loser in England, you're going to be a loser here. Better invest your time, go lift some heavy weights, read some books to make yourself smarter. But don't think you're going to come to some other country. Or what some of them do, and this is what really gets me. They'll go to the poorest neighborhoods they can find a girl that has absolutely nothing and say, she loves me. Well, that's fine. Poor people love the same way that rich people do. But when you go there with the intention of doing it, and they wanted me to write these articles of a Brazil that doesn't exist, at least not in my social circle, maybe it does in theirs. And I said, what you're doing is misleading. And it's also hurting. And maybe this came with, with age and as I rapidly approach maturity, I said, the people that you're hurting the most are Black people like you and me. The Black women who are going to be looked at as less than because you're promoting this false idea of what they're there for because they're poor or because of their country. I'm not telling you Brazilian women love any differently. They love just like everybody else. But you can't, it just, it got me. It really got me. Hold on, let me unmute you. Oh, you muted yourself. Oh, hold on.
Can you hear me?
Now I can, yeah. There you go.
Okay. Oh, maybe I did. Yeah, no, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. The Black women, no matter where they are, they always are the most disrespected woman on earth.
Yeah, it's hard.
It is. I'm watching this show right now. This show called La Esclava Blanca, which means the white slave. Uh-huh. And it's based in Colombia in colonial times, and it's interesting to see how Spanish slaves were treated as opposed to American slaves, or even just the similarities as well. It's like no matter where you were at, even if you were Black, you were still a slave. Like you were treated the same way. But it's just interesting to see like how the different cultures emerge depending on what country the slave were in. So as I'm watching this show, I'm just learning how even though we were thousands of miles apart from America to Colombia, we still had the same soul, like the same jazz and the same flavor about us. And it's just interesting how that carries over no matter where we go, no matter where we are. That African diaspora flavor, it's just in us, no matter what. I've been to Panama and I noticed how the Black people there have like gold teeth. And I'm just like, you can take the Black person out of Africa, but you cannot take the Africa out of the Black person. You just can't. You can't.
So Panama, can you give me a rundown on some of the countries you've lived in?
I've only lived in 2 outside of America, but I've traveled to like 25 so far. So I lived in Lithuania, but that was because of work. But I was there for like 6 months straight, and I loved it. I would live there in a heartbeat. And now I'm in Australia, but I'm just traveling around. But Australia, to me, Australia is the American dream that America sells the world. So they have free healthcare insurance. People don't die by the thousands by guns because people don't have guns. I seen a statistic the other day that said in 2017, 39,000 Americans died from gun violence, and in 2017 in Australia, 200 people died from firearms. So you go from 39,000 to 200. I'm just like, who will live in a nation like that? You know, so in Australia, you have free healthcare. Minimum wage is $23 an hour.
Well, we can argue minimum wage back and forth. I worked in the financial business for many years as an investor and doing different things with money. We can argue minimum wage, but we have to argue purchasing power.
No, for sure, all of that. But at the same time, also, Australia has, I think, there was like a study done, and for the past 7 years in a row, the city that I live in called Melbourne, that city had been voted the most livable city in the world for the past 7 years straight, which I think says a lot about the Australia and its economy and its growth and its overall quality of life. You know, like especially as a person of color, like as a Black American, like I don't feel like I'm always being watched. I don't feel less than. I feel like I can just live a good life, an easy life. Only thing that I do miss is Black people, Black Americans. You know, you do have Eastern Africans like Somalians and Ethiopians and South Sudanese immigrants who live in Australia now. And then you have like the Black American expats, but there's still nothing like the full Black culture that you get back in America.
What made you choose that city of Melbourne versus where I lived in Sydney?
I didn't. It chose me.
Oh, here we go with the metaphysical.
No, but it's real. Like I never even visited Australia before I moved there. I had never been there. I knew nothing about Australia, but my spirit said to go to Melbourne, and so I went. And the moment I got there, I knew I loved it. And I've always been very good at just following my spirit and just listening to what it says to do. And the moment I landed, I just knew, like it was just the feeling that I got that said, okay, you need to be here. And it's funny that you said that about Sydney, because when I went to Sydney in January or February, after I had been living there for 2 months already in Australia. And I got to Sydney, and instantly I did not like it. Instantly, I didn't like it.
Okay.
Instantaneously.
How long have you been there?
How long what?
How long have you been in Melbourne?
I've been there since December. So 4 or 5 months now. Take away the month that I've been in Bali. But
are you planning on doing the whole residency thing?
I'll be there for 2 years. So I have a working holiday visa, and that visa is good for 1 year. If I want to stay for 2 years, I have to like do work in a specific region of Australia for 3 months, and then I can be granted my second year visa. So I'll be here for 2 years for sure.
Right on. I've been here in Brazil. Normally I go to a country for 2 years and then a new country. I've been in Brazil for 4. I'm going to do the whole residency thing here. And one of the things I'll tell you, you just turned 30. Speaking as as I'm rapidly approaching maturity, potentially curmudgeonly big brother, old uncle. Over the next 10 years, decide where you want to have second citizenship, second residency, and as one of your 40th birthday plans, regardless of where you call home or where you go back to, have a second passport someplace else.
Okay. Why do you say that?
Well, the world is changing now at an unprecedented rate, and it's been changing since the turn of the century, faster than it ever had in history. I want to have choices and options. I don't trust, first of all, remember earlier I said I don't trust politicians. I don't trust any form of government. I want to have diverse choices of where I can lay my head.
Okay.
And I would say you always want to be able to say, I can go someplace else if I don't like it in America, or if you just don't want to go back. I mean, the unfortunate reality that a lot of people who don't necessarily get to travel don't see is that I don't know anyone who started to see the world. And I always tell people, spend 6 months in a country, preferably one where they don't even speak your language.
Yeah.
And it changes your life in a way that you can't explain to people who haven't. The downside is that you want to keep seeing other places. I don't know anyone who traveled, saw 1 or 2 countries, and then said, I want to go back to where I was born.
And see, my problem, well, not my problem, but my dilemma is that since I travel so much, I don't know where I want to live when it's all said and done.
You're 30. You don't want to make a decision?
I know, but I didn't say I could live anywhere. I could live anywhere.
Yes, you pick up your computer, throw it
but
in, and go.
But at some point, I want to build a foundation. I don't know what that foundation will be at.
You're building a foundation now. Foundation doesn't mean brick and mortar and 4 walls. You're building a foundation here with me. Just because we're not even in the same country, you and I have made a connection that is going to benefit both of us at some point, I hope. If I can give you some information or some people I can throw your way, and you'll do the same for me. But a foundation where you feel comfortable. I mean, those global networks are real. I've done business with people that I've never even met. I've made friends that I've known just online, and then we've trusted each other enough to actually help each other and stay in each other's places. It's really,
yeah.
You know, and I'm not saying that's for everybody, and I'm not saying that should be true without some serious introspection. But what I can tell you is that it's possible. You can do these things. It's not. You don't have to look. Don't think about, I want to settle down. Don't do that. Not until at least another 10 years, and preferably if it was up to me, minimum 3 or 4 more countries. Now, what you might want to do is say, like where you are now, you're going to be there for 2 years, right? Good.
Right.
During the 6 months of your last year, I want you to say, hey, where's the next adventure?
Oh, Spain, I already know.
Oh, really? Spain. Where? Spain.
Madrid. I love Madrid. Or Barcelona, I don't know, but Madrid has more of what I need, which is like it's the hub of film and production and TV production. So that's why I was picking Madrid, and I love Madrid.
Really? Okay. See, I've been to Spain. I did the running of the bulls in Pamplona, and I lived. I lived in a. You know, I decided to once in my life try to be a backpacker. That shit beneath me. I had classes. I spent a month on the side of a mountain.
In Granada.
In
Granada. No,
it was Iruña near the Basque country.
Oh, okay, up there.
I took a tent and lived on the side of a mountain, and it was fun. It was cool, and I got to wash every day. It wasn't, it wasn't like I was running from bears, but that life, nah. I prefer to be able to go out, explore the city, do different things. But where I lay my head, I'd like to be inside. You know, people ask me all the time about the backpacker life, and I was like, I have no idea what that's like.
Well, but you can stay in a hostel or a private room as a backpacker.
Yeah, that's what I've learned. Private rooms. I'll get a private room someplace. Just be mine.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
that's still backpacking.
I don't want to. I don't want to take anything away from those people who decide they want to,
See, some people do think that backpacking means that you sleep outside, like anywhere you can. Or some people do that, but most backpackers sleep in a hostel, in the bed.
Not. Yeah, I'm not that whole outside dude. I'm the guy.
I'm not an outdoorsy guy, like at all. Like I never was. So that's just not. It's not in my DNA. But I definitely, and I'm very picky when it comes to where I stay as well. So like I pick like the hostels that have like the highest ratings, the most expensive ones, because I just like to be comfortable. Like I'm not going to be uncomfortable doing what I do. I'm just not.
Right. Well, can we talk about something that I never want to overlook when I talk to people like you and have a conversation with guys like us who do this world thing? Can you tell me about your education?
I graduated high school. I graduated college as well. I got my degree in. Oh, that's been so long. I forgot what I got my degree in.
You're 30 years old. Stop talking about it.
It was a long time ago, man. What did I get my degree in? I really don't remember. It's that I don't use it, so I mean that goes to show you that it was.
Because one of the things that I want
it was recording arts. That's what it was. Recording arts.
This is one of the things I want to touch on, because I do get contacted by people who want to start this lifestyle, and I want to live here and I want to live there. And the thing that keeps coming up over and over again for me is, without an education, I don't think any of this is possible. Because I have younger cousins, some younger than you, who tell me that the days of being able to afford to go to school, or that school was actually a good idea, are long gone. And I disagree. Yeah. I said that's one of the very few things that you should sacrifice for. But I also know that school has become so much more expensive.
Right.
But I know that having what we have, for example, I'll tell you something, and you can back me up on this if you've encountered it. A lot of people don't know that there are countries that won't let you have anything more than a short tourist visa if you don't have an education. They will not let someone without a formal education stay in their country.
I haven't come across that.
Less likely to be able to produce.
No, is that more like Asian countries?
The first time I think I encountered it was in, I want to say Japan, probably, but
Yeah,
I know a few countries that have a very clear check on you have to have an education if you want to stay there. Now you can visit all you want, but if you want to actually be there, if you want to have that long term, nope.
Oh, that's news to me. Okay, well, I have my education, but you know, again, the world is changing, and you know, people are becoming more entrepreneurial, and I mean, many people have been very successful without having gone to college.
I agree.
But again, you know, everyone has their own path. And, you know, for me, that path was college because it just made sense. And it was my way to get into my field, and it worked out perfectly for me. But I know everyone, you know, it's not the same for everybody else. So, you know, I think people just have to do what works best for them.
But here's what I got to give you some pushback, though. Here's the difference. You and I can talk about education being a choice because we have one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody who talks about how it's okay to travel the world and no, I don't have any education and I'm still accepted everywhere and I don't have any limitations. That's not somebody who doesn't already have it. So it's kind of like when we talk about, well, I don't use my college degree. I would actually disagree. I think having a university degree has given you certain fundamental skills, even if those skills are only how to learn, that are valuable all over the world since the beginning of time.
Okay, I'm gonna give you some pushback. Now, I know many travelers who don't have an education, a college degree, and they travel just fine, and they make money on their own, and they live just like I'm living.
Black people.
No.
That's my point.
I mean, but you don't have to be black. You don't have to be that.
I disagree. Black Americans have never started at zero where we can simply prove ourselves and do well. If we don't start out with as many advantages as we can, we don't even get to mediocrity.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that because I do know, I haven't met any since I've been traveling, but I do know black people from back home that don't have a degree and they still travel the world as well.
I'm sure that number is
again. It's not one shoe fits all.
No, you're right.
You're right. I know people with a degree who don't have a job at all.
True.
Or working in their field at all. So, I mean, it goes both ways.
But I'm talking about that travel aspect, especially. One of the things and again, I have to remember, I'm more corporate dude. So for me, maybe it's just a lot different.
Yeah.
You know, from my travel experience, you know, I know a lot of people who travel, but I think I'm more corporate dude, and I'm the guy that does work with federal governments and things like that. So for me, those are baseline requirements. But you're right. And here's the other thing. Being able to travel and living off traveling are two different things. I know people that live off something they do online. They just happen to be a digital nomad and they do that thing in another country.
Listen, absolutely. Right at this very moment, I'm staying in a house that's catered towards digital nomads. And some of these people have no college degree.
Right.
But guess what? They are in X amount of countries traveling and living their best lives, and they are making money while they're doing it. And it's all races of people.
Digital nomad, I mean, that hustle one side, because as an editor, copy editor, proofreader, I do all mine online. My clients come from all over the world and they get referred to me. And, you know, I can do this anywhere. And
exactly. Yeah.
That digital nomad.
The world is changing. You know, technology has made it so we don't have to sit behind a desk. You know, we don't have to work a 9 to 5. We don't have to work for 40 years and retire at 65 and then just be dead. Like, to me, that's just no living. That's no life at all. And I'm just not I'm not a fan of that. But, you know, to each his own. Some people are very comfortable with a 9 to 5 and working and having their 401k. And that's not what I want to do with myself. Well, I like my freedom. I see, and I love my field because, like in my field, we work as freelancers pretty much. So I can work for 4 months on a contract, and I could take off for the next 4 months and then go travel the world and then go back and do it again. So that's why I love. That's why I love my field.
Tell us what you do in case somebody listening needs you.
So I work in television production, and the good thing about production is that you don't have to have an education to work in my field. You know, you can start from the bottom and work your way up, like I did, even though I didn't have a degree. But you don't have to have a degree to do what I do. I started as entry level position, and within 2 years, I was a producer of a reality TV show called Ball in the Family, with LeVar Ball and Lonzo Ball and that whole the Ball Boys, Melo Jello, all of them. So in my field, pretty much everyone we work by contract. We're pretty much freelancers, and so that means like if my first season of the show is 4 months, you work from January to April, and you have like 2 months off. Now, if you want to return to that show, you can, but if you don't have to return. You can go travel and do what you want to do. So if anybody who wants that like that flexibility of traveling and working and making good money, I really recommend that you get into some type of production or some type of freelance job that gives you that freedom and that gives you that income that you need to survive when you're not working. So for me, that's my bread and butter, and that's how I've been able to maintain. And like I worked for prior to me moving to Australia, I worked for a year, 2 years straight. I saved every dime I had, and because I had it in my mind that I would move to Australia in a year. So being that I do have a job that supports a certain type of lifestyle, I was able to save tremendously. And now I can take off for 6 months and not have to work if I don't want to. And I could just focus on my creative writing. So I just recommend that people really find a way to get into a job that gives you that freedom, that flexibility. Because that's what it's about.
Have you picked up?
I'm not going to ever work. I'm not ever going to work to live ever again. Or yeah, I'm going to, you know what I mean. I'm not going to ever live to work. I'm going to work to live.
Yes, thank you.
Period. Yeah. Hey, it's late here, man.
Well, how many languages have you picked up in your travels? I'm picking up, of course, my Portuguese.
So I've always spoken Spanish prior to me even traveling. So that's like my second language, but that's my main language. I picked up a little bit of Italian, but nothing else really like strikes me as wanting to learn. So I learned the basics. So every country that I go to, I learn the bare minimum, which is hi, bye, no, please, thank you. Just the simple, your simple manners. To me, that goes a long way.
I said you have to learn 5 things in every language. Please, thank you, I'm sorry, because you're going to mess up. And the last 2 are the most important. The food from your country tastes great because everybody thinks their food is the best. And the women are beautiful.
Yeah.
When you can say that, everybody is like, "Oh, you should go dinner Sunday."
Yeah. And to me, it's just respectful, and it goes a long way. So I always learn those 5 things when I go to any country, except for Bali.
What language do they speak in Bali?
2. They speak Balinese and they speak Indonesian. So Indonesia is made up of multiple islands that the Dutch conquered. So when they conquer those islands, they just group it all together as Indonesia. But each island has its own language, its own customs, its own religion, its own food, its own everything. So you have these different ethnicities of people with these different backgrounds, and they're forced together because the Dutch said so, right? So, I mean, you have one side on the Jakarta side, it's like their main capital. They're very pale. They're pale. They're more of the upper, quote unquote, upper class of the Indonesians, quote unquote. And then you have the people from Papua, which is on the western side, the eastern side of the islands. They look just like me and you. Got 100%, like 100%, like nappy hair, like black, like I'm like no exaggeration. I met a guy who his mom was from Jakarta, the white side. His dad was from Papua, the black side, and he was a mixture of the two, of course. And he showed me a picture because he looked like straight up like the typical Asian phenotype of what you think of what an Asian would look like. And he showed me a picture of his father, and he looked like me. He looked like me. And I was just like, this is truly a black planet, but we would never know that because we don't see that, we don't travel, we don't go nowhere, we're not taught that. But it's truly a black planet. And even the other day, I was driving my scooter here in Bali, and I went to get some gas, and this Asian guy saw me, and he looked at me. He was like, "Bro, me and you, same hair, same hair." The dude, the hair was just nappy, just like mine. I was just like, "Bro, yes, like my brother." I said, right on, bro. Yeah, man. It's like, but they know who they are. You know what I mean? They know where they come from and who their descendants are and how they got here.
One of the reasons I asked you about language is because I'm always asked by people who really don't have any way to start and are looking for a way to start, or while they're saving, or even more importantly, say, how can I get my children interested in travel or give them the facility to travel? And I say the cheapest, most effective thing you can do is learn a second language. And if you have no other resources, download Duolingo for free. It's not going to teach you all the language. It might only teach you 20%, but it'll teach you how to read it, maybe a little bit of fundamental.
Exactly.
You know,
it'll teach you what you need to know.
Start a Facebook group in your city if they don't already have one, because a lot of cities people don't know between Facebook and Meetup. You can type in city name, you know, Portuguese language, and if they don't have one, start one. There's somebody in that country who's like,
that wants to learn.
And if you get real lucky, one of my buddies started he lived in some small city in the South, and he was like, he put online, hey, I'm going to learn French. And he was in high school at the time. Sure enough, there is a lady, they didn't even know she was French. Old lady. She became his best friend. In a year, he would take her out for coffee, and she was a retired lady. She had shit else to do. And she just started coffee, just basic. And by a year, it was just they would sit back and talk it. And the only thing he said when he talks to contemporary people who speak French, because online you can talk to people, he was like, every now and then he would say something. They would look at him like, that's a very old word you're using. Like, how old are you? Because the lady who taught him was a grand lady.
Right.
You never know. Or you can get lucky. Like, one of my buddies wanted to learn Russian, and he popped into a Russian language group someplace close to New York City, went in and room full of people just speaking nothing but Russian.
Yeah, beautiful.
And especially
for me, go ahead.
Oh, please.
For me, that language is Spanish. It's just always come easy to me. And I just grew up around a lot of Latinos, so for me, it was just like, it's like second nature. And I love it because there's so many Spanish-speaking countries. It's like 20 of them. So you can, if you know Spanish and English, you can go virtually anywhere. And,
I speak Spanish more than English. More people speak Spanish than English.
I love Spanish. You know, I'm not too big on Portuguese, but I love Italian and I love Spanish for sure. I love Latin languages.
My thing is, I tell people there are two ways to learn a language. I call it the 3-language theory. Either learn a big language like Spanish, Mandarin Chinese, where you can talk to millions of people, or learn a small niche language like Brazilian Portuguese that'll give you a unique market share. Or another niche language would be something like Dutch or Russian. Not a lot of people speak those languages.
Right.
And you really fit a niche. But don't learn a dead language. Like, I know a guy who's learning Latin, and I'm like, how is that going to help you? You're not a doctor or a lawyer.
Right.
It's not going to help you at all.
Right.
You know, and it's an awkward thing to. But he was like, "Oh, I want to learn." I was like, "Well, let me know how that works out." But if you can just learn any other language, but as Americans, we're the only people who don't know that.
Yep, exactly. We're the only people who speak one language.
Yep, the only one. We're the only people who just, and so many Americans are proud of it. And then they go someplace.
It's disgusting.
They go someplace and then wonder, wow, how come people are looking at me this way?
Right. And they go someplace and they expect people to speak English. Like, no. Like, be respectful, learn where you're at, and learn their language. At least learn the basics. Hi, bye, no, thank you, yes, please.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
But nobody... You know, we have that one thing about living in the United States and being an American is people always come to English. That's one problem I've encountered here in the city of São Paulo, Brazil, which is one of the in the world. Huh?
I got friends there.
Oh yeah, you'll have to hook me up with them. I'd love to meet some cool people. Yeah. But one of the things that happens is I can go someplace. Let's say I go shopping. I want to buy some T-shirts and você tem camisetas ou regatas grande, and they'll say, English, you speak English. I'm like, no, Portuguese. And they'll just refuse to speak Portuguese with me.
Yeah. I've experienced that too.
And they just, and to be fair, they don't get an awful lot of opportunities to speak English.
Right.
I'm still struggling. And I mean, it'll be some of the weirdest places, and they'll just come out speaking fluent English. Like, oh yeah, my cousin, moved to America, came back, taught us all English. Or there's a lot of people who every now and then their family will spring for them to go learn English.
But you've been there for how long?
4 years.
And you still aren't fluent in Portuguese?
Not dead fluent the way I should be because of my career. I'll give you this example. Almost all of my friends work in an office with Brazilians, and the things they do in the evening require learning Portuguese. Whereas I lift weights and I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, we're not having conversations. You learn with your eyes and through repeating a movement. My entire workday consists of reading, writing, and producing in English language. So I'm left with my free time when I do go out with my friends. Then I can practice my Portuguese. I have a private teacher who I work with a couple of times a week because I'm studying for a federal exam. There is a thing called the CELPE-BRAS. And in order to get your certification in Portuguese, you must score intermediate or higher. There is no lower intermediate. There is no beginner level. And the part that kills you, it's never the language, it's the writing, because their grammar here is sight to behold. They have so many grammatical punctuations that we've never experienced before. And one of the things you learn is that romantic languages and things like Brazilian Portuguese are long-worded languages. They can take a phrase that we'll say in a few words and they'll make it much longer. But that's I believe that English is a business language is because English is a small, dirty language. We say exactly what it is the way it is. We don't have any beautification to it. Whereas in other languages, when they say it, it's like, I mean, this is the place where it takes 15 minutes to say hello and goodbye. Like, you can start saying goodbye and go through an entire list of appropriate, I'm not talking about exaggerating, appropriate goodbyes that will take you minutes. Whereas in America, talk to you later, goodbye. Right. So you could say, goodbye, have a good night, have a good weekend, enjoy your holiday, and all that's considered part of the normal conversation. As you're saying goodbye, you're like, my taxi is here. But I can't, they're not going to conform to my standards. I've got to be the person that's got to stand there and listen or give all my goodbyes. So it's So yeah, I am definitely ashamed that I haven't become fluent because I had the privilege of not having to prioritize it for my career. And then on top of that, the people that are in Brazil that I work with and that are my clients tend to come from an echelon in life where they've gone to the schools where they learn 2 or 3 languages from childhood because they're businessmen, their families had that kind of money. And so when them, they'll speak to me in English. So for me, it's a real effort. Now, am I conversational? Sure. Can I talk to you about something stupid? Sure. But one of my friends sent me an economics article, and she was really angry that I couldn't read it. And she said, I'm not angry, I'm insulted that you've been in my country that long. I get it. I've had friends who are like from Puerto Rico, and they hate when other Latinos don't speak English in America when they've been there for 10 years, 5 years plus. It's just like, you must don't want to speak it, but so I understand the frustration. Yeah, but I have my motivations. My ability to read is a little higher, and you learn what you want to learn. For example, São Paulo being
100%.
one of the large cities in the world, I'm a food person. So you send me to a restaurant, people think I'm fluent. When it comes down to food and talking about food, I'm all day, every day. Or there are tons and tons of it's like any major city in the world. There are tons of free things to do. Art, music, culture, dance, music, this famous musician is coming. So I had to learn how to read the bulletins and learn how to read, dates, times, who's coming, where. Is it free? Is it not free? Is it free before this time? Things like that. Well, listen, you told me it's late there, and I'm going to put all the 11. It's 11 there. What time you start your work day tomorrow?
9 every day. But I get up at like 6:37, but I like do my meditation first and my prayer and my visualization and my affirmations, and then I get my day started. So
awesome. Well, listen, tell everybody where they can find you, and I'm also going to put it in the links below.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook at Reis Armstrong, Reis Armstrong. on Instagram at Love Reis and Soul, like love, peace, and soul. If you have any personal questions, you can email me at reisarmstrong.com, and I'll be sure to respond.
All right. Well, listen, let's say goodbye to them. I got some stuff I want to tell you after we're offline.
Okay.